Alrighty, got a match here for the quarterfinals of this year's championships between Dingan and Syamii. I have no idea if I'm pronouncing that correctly, to be perfectly honest. Could be Dingan or Dingan. Really, there's no way to know. Yeah. They didn't just hit the ground running. They started running while they were still in the air. This match is scheduled to start like now. And apparently the two players said, we ain't waiting, and have begun, I can only hope is game one, before the expected start time. Yeah, I don't know if we're going to get caught up on this one in 10 seconds. Let's look at the kingdom. So thinning, you got altar, there's cage, remodel, plenty of thinning, mountain village is your village, draw, stables, patrol, distant shores kind of draw. Plus buy, there's astrolabe. You can gain stuff with remodel and altar. Seems like a pretty decent, well-rounded village. Yeah, showing up 1 to 2 minutes late is like arriving, I don't know, 3 or 4 minutes early. That's the way it's meant to be. So how would I open here? Well, it looks like one of them had the 5-2. On 5-2, I would think patrol cage seems really nice. Because patrol in particular, you find it turn 3, then that's lovely. You're almost certain to line your kid up with 3 estates. Which, I mean, that's not permanent. Once you get victory cards, the cage pops again. But the tempo boost of setting aside 3 estates and a copper is pretty big. On the 4-3... Yeah, I think I like a cage opening on either split. You'll kill it eventually, but you can wait until you've thinned the rest of your stuff at the altar. So probably cage and old map, I would think, would be the 4-3 opening. Let's see what they did. Patrol, cage versus astrolabe, banish. Interesting. So banish, you just get rid of the 1 estate. That opening seems pretty bad at hitting 6, which is the number that you want to get to. Maybe their goal is just to add a remodel shortly after and do the other estates that way. Like remodel, astrolabe, hit remodel, then turn the estates into mountain villages, and then get an altar later for your coppers. I'll must be following the log for this game. Hey, Syamii has a patrol turn 3, then Dingan banishes 2 estates. So they both were like, I like what my opponent did, I'll copy that. Wait a second. Dingan opened patrol turn 1, and they set aside 4 things turn 3, and they exiled 2 more things turn 4. So their deck surely is teeny tiny by this point, right? 3 coppers, 3 estates. Like, this is literally their whole deck. D draws 4 coppers and a patrol. Yeah. I mean, I guess it worked. Like the patrol did literally nothing for him, but I mean, you had a remodel. I presume they're gonna remodel the patrol into an altar. Why did they add a remodel? I'm confused. All of this is very, very hard to interpret just based on the text on the log, but Dingan's line is confusing me. I would think that the next priority is getting an altar and turning your coppers into 5s. They added a remodel, turned the coppers into fool's golds, and just are ignoring the fact that they got a patrol. I mean, fool's gold seems like alright payload. Astrolabe's a good bit of buy, which makes it easy to pick up multiples. Stables probably wants you to have treasures as payload. Alternative, like if thinning were worse, just keeping your coppers and then adding a banker to it would also be fine payload. Anyways, I'm going to skip like 8 turns ahead and try to figure out where we are at the moment, just without having seen the last 8 turns. It appears that Syamii has more points, so they're probably winning. That's usually how things go. Dingan broke free of the cage on turn 10. That's scary. That's a real scary sight. Syamii also banishing 3 provinces is great for their deck working. It's three junk cards that are hidden away on the exile mat permanently. We're not seeing any love for the Odyssey pile. How good are these? Distant Shore is a decent amount of points. It's not that easy to get here because it's one card or one coin too much for Alter to gain. But I mean, you can buy it. The estates can easily be remodeled, exiled. If that got revealed, I would think it's good. I guess probably the reason they're not coming up is because old map's best for sifting, and they got thin enough fast enough that sifting wasn't a priority. I wonder how relevant Voyage would be. Potentially a little bit awkward with the Astrolabes. Not necessarily so, though. Okay, so Dingan is about to lose this game. I mean, they did seem to be behind in points. So they were praying for a dud, and they got a dud. Just not the player that they wanted it to happen to. Alright, so I'm going to call that game 0 goes to Syamii. Maybe that was a warm-up game. You never know. Alright, the second kingdom. What have we got here? Draw, Hunting Party, kind of Crossroads, technically Patrician. If you're feeling gutsy, Lich is draw. Beggar plus Storeroom is kind of like draw. You put 3 coppers in your hand and then you discard them with Storeroom for net +1 card. It's like a terminal moat that junks yourself 3 times. It's like a double terminal moat. Moat's already terminal. Oh, true. Beggar Innkeeper. A little more expensive, but you only have to spend 1 terminal action on it. Thinning? How do you trash your cards? Carpenter eventually, but not in the short term. Student will be the easiest way to trash things in the interim. Desert Guide's not the most phenomenal, but you do want probably a few favors because it counters Skirmisher. I mean, maybe you just don't get Skirmisher in the first place once the opponent has favors, but it's nice that you have favors because it means the opponent can't be a jerk and make you discard cards because you just hit your hand and draw 5 again. So how would you open here? Stockpile feels like an obvious open. Do you get Student immediately to thin? Maybe. Opening with a Copper Trasher and not an Estate Trasher is always a recipe for hitting low numbers. I think double Stockpile would be pretty reasonable, or Stockpile Carpenter. What do they do? Carpenter Student versus Student Carpenter. Okay, we don't like the Stockpile so much. I like the Stockpile much. But they don't feel like hitting 5. We got a Stockpile turn 3 at least for each player. How the hell? See how we hit 5 off of a Carpenter Student open? This is unjust. These openings did not deserve to hit 5. You're opening Student and Carpenter. 2 cards that don't draw you anything, don't give you any money. Like, you're accepting that you're not going to hit 5 on turn 3 or turn 4. And Syamii is just a lucky duck. I do find this kingdom kind of awkward. I mean, Hunting Party is good. Quite reliable draw, but it's not, like, in total that much draw. You had 5 Hunting Parties, you got a bunch of non-terminal draw that's pretty reliable, but you still only got, 5 extra draw in your whole deck. I guess you could... I mean, maybe you just don't even trash estates, to be perfectly honest. You get enough Hunting Parties that you probably have a hand that's got a Crossroads and a bunch of your victory cards in it, and then the Crossroads are the rest of your draw. How many villages do we have here? So Crossroads lets you play 3 total terminals, but you can't gain additional Crossroads for additional villages because it's only a one-time thing. Aside from that, I think the only other village is Lich. I was imagining a deck where you draw your deck, and then you discard like 10 cards of storeroom, and then you draw them all with crossroads, and you discard a storeroom again, and you make a bunch of money that way. But you can only do that a handful of times here because you can't play very many storerooms with your crossroads, and you probably also want to play Carpenter at some point terminally. So that's not necessarily the best payload. Probably the more realistic payload here would be Carpenter trashing Lich, which gains itself. Well, it doesn't technically gain itself. It puts itself back into your discard so that you still have it. But you can trash Lich into Province, still have a Lich as a target for later in the turn or on future turns. That could be pretty good. It doesn't look like they're pursuing the crossroads stuff. They are happily trashing their estates, which is in general what one wants to do. They don't have a lot of favors at the moment, which I guess does make a case for Skirmisher. Like if you have abundant favors from having trashed all of your coppers with students, then every time the opponent buys a Skirmisher, you just spend a favor on Desert Guides to draw back up to 5, and then you're fine. Syamii has 1, Dingan has 0. So you can make a case for a Skirmisher. It's still a bit of an investment, because like you buy the first Skirmisher, planning to gain 1 the next turn, and then your opponent just trashes a copper with student. They'll have to trash like 1 per turn to be safe. I mean, Emporium's not amazing or anything. 2 victory points is a nice bonus, but not super important. I think I would take Emporium over Skirmisher here, but I don't think it's a big differential. I mean, I guess realistically, you're not taking either of them as long as the hunting party pile exists. Is Sorcerer any good? Surely not. I mean, the problem is it's not a hunting party, so like, why would you take it? Just keep clicking those. Stockpiles will run out, hunting party will run out, and then Emporium is going to be low enough that we're going to be in an in-game conditions. I would like to get a Lich if I could before that point in time. What you really ought to do is get the Lich by trashing an Emporium into the Lich, and then when you go to trash your Lich, you'll get the Emporium back, and you'll get 2 victory points off of it. That would be cute. Who's in the lead? Let's see how many hunting parties they have. Is this all 3 of Syamii's? Nope. It appears that Syamii has 4 hunting parties out of the 6 that have been gained. So I'm going to hypothesize that maybe they're in the lead. That's not super clear though. They haven't, I guess neither of them's really trashed many coppers. They've also just burnt almost all their stockpiles, which are probably not coming back. There's an asterisk there, but probably in the near future at least, they're not getting their stockpiles back. Where, I mean, that's not the end of the world here. It's not the only payload or anything, but given how much both have committed to the stockpile stuff, Dingan having a bunch left to play is probably a good sign. So usually stockpiles are just like the pile runs out and then eventually the stockpiles are gone forever and you got to find alternative payload. Or more realistically, the piles are probably just about empty and then you just like rush to end the game. Here, you could technically play with stockpiles forever and ever. And the way to do that would be with your final stockpile. Let's say you had 5 of them. You play 4 of them and then you trash 1 stockpile with, let's say, your student. Then you trash a Lich, regaining your 5th stockpile. Now, because you gained a stockpile, you can unexile the previous 4 stockpiles. And then you could do that. So you have to go through this whole little process of trashing and regaining a stockpile. And then that lets you play your other 4 stockpiles over and over. Not necessarily worth it, But it could be, especially if you won the stockpile split decisively, that might be better to do than trying to add a bunch of new treasures to replace them. All right, pile's getting low, which makes province pretty sensible. It is weird how few coppers have been trashed, given that they both open with student. Because like that's the thing that student is best at, is killing the coppers rather than the estates. Because you get to put the student back on your deck in that case, and like you could potentially trash all the coppers on a turn. If you just play the student, trash a copper, draw it again, trash a copper, etc. So 4 stockpiles down for Syamii, 3 for Dingan, 2 more in Dingan's hand. There's a mysterious 10th stockpile hiding somewhere. I'm gonna guess it's in Dingan's deck. If piles weren't so low, like these decks definitely don't feel like they're quite ready to green, and you wouldn't be taking these provinces if not for the fact that Hunting Party and Emporium are almost empty. Like these decks would work a lot better with just a turn or two more of building. Is this double here? Given the point in the game, I'm going to say yes, but Syamii says no. Syamii second guesses themselves and they come around to the yes. Still seems like a pretty close game. Don't know who's in the lead. I'm gonna guess Syamii by a hair. Not close. Okay, well, looking at this hand, maybe it's not as close as I thought it was. I was expecting Dingan to get a province here and, I don't know, maybe a duchy or something, and then be slightly behind in points. But that didn't occur. Who got the 7th Hunting Party? Oh, that would explain a lot. So I remember being 4-2 at some point on hunting parties. And then, since then, 1 more hunting party's been gained, also by Syamii. So, having 5 of the 7 key draw cards does seem to suggest that Syamii has a bit of an advantage here. I'm going to blame that ridiculously lucky turn 4 draw. Probably Crossroads better than nothing here. Who has a Crossroads? Yeah, Syamii has 0 Crossroads. I liked Crossroads there a lot. I don't know that 1 point makes enough of a difference. I mean, hypothetically, the estate means that if Dingan somehow hits double province and duchy, you tie. And maybe I'm underestimating Dingan's deck, but I don't think double province duchy in 1 turn was the real threat here. I think the threat was they do like province duchy and then you dud and you lose that way. And I feel like Crossroads helps you avoid a dud more than not a Crossroads. Maybe even a beggar. Like if you draw a beggar and a bunch of coppers, you could still hit province off of it because it's 3 money. Yeah, I'm gonna say I didn't like the state so much. Not that it's likely to be a big deal here. This looks like a win in hand, right? Like you just pitch all of this with the storeroom and you're guaranteed to have 8 money. Which I think they were trying to do there and forgot that you first had to pitch for cards before you pitch for coins. All right. 2-0 for Syamii. What do we got here? Village, we got Bandit Camp, Lackeys, kinda. On game, it's a village. So only the 2 villages looks like. Draw, Apprentice, Maroon, Crew, Lackeys, plus buy. Druid is plus buy. There's Modify for gains. Trashing, you got Apprentice, Maroon, Modify. Pretty standard looking kingdom, I would say. What are the boons on Druid? Those boons do not look very good. Sun looks basically useless. The trashing boon would be good if there weren't better trashing, but I think you're just trashing with Maroon probably. Forest Gift is kind of nice, I think, because you're getting an otherwise bad card for plus buy purposes when they only have to get 1 Druid to cover 2 extra buys. Something hurt, and I don't know what it was, because these players really like jumping the gun a bit. Dingan is not getting help. Yeah, I think that would be illegal, actually, for Dingan to receive outside assistance. Maroon. Oh, is it a double bottom deck? Let's go look. Dingan draws 4 coppers, turn 3. Oh, that is rough. So there's a 1 in 66 chance in your standard Dominion Kingdom that you buy 2 things in the open. So let's say Maroon and Lackeys in this case. That of the 12 cards that are now in your deck, you draw the 10 that are not the 2 cards you bought. And Dingan, unfortunately, got that 1 in 66 disaster case. And notably, you know, like if you open Maroon Silver, for example, right, there's still a chance your Maroon bottom decks. And like that's kind of sad. And that's like a, what, 1 in 6-ish chance. But with Maroon Lackeys, literally the only way to not get to play your Maroon the first shuffle is for both the bottom deck. Because if you found your Lackeys, that would draw you the 2 extra cards to guarantee you find your Maroon, and vice versa. And so, literally, neither of them could miss unless they both missed, and then Dingan went and shuffled his deck in a bad way. I don't trust you. Okay, so, not knowing what else has happened, I have to assume that Dingan's well behind here, because that's a big deal. Maroon is definitely better than usual in this kingdom, and it's already a really good card from the get-go. It's basically like Masquerade, but you don't have to like pretend to care about passing cards back and forth. But it cares about the number of types, and in this kingdom, all your estates are actually shelters, which have 2 types apiece. And so Maroon gets to draw 4 cards every time you kill an estate, which is well, estate asterisk, which is obviously really good. Dingan is ahead. What the heck has happened since the bottom deck? It would be nice if these players like thought about their decisions for a non-zero amount of time. I'm never gonna catch up. This is an interesting decision from Syamii. I'm not sure I agree with it. To be clear, I'm only on turn 3. I'm looking at Syamii's turn 3. They had 3 coppers, Necropolis, and... Oh, never mind. This makes total sense. Like, wait, does it? That does stick... Like, definitely some hindsight bias here, coloring my judgment. But if you have a hand of Lackeys, Necropolis, 3 coppers, I realize they didn't know yet that they were going to draw the Maroon. So the question is, do you play the Lackeys before the Maroon... the Necropolis before the Lackeys? The upside of doing it is you conserve an action. So literally identical if Maroon is anywhere but the top 2. But the question is, like, would you rather play the Necropolis or not if your Maroon happens to be in the top 2 of your cards? I'm going to say playing the Necropolis was probably a mistake, because if you find the Maroon, you save a village by playing the Necropolis first. But if you find the Maroon with a copper, you'd really rather trash the Necropolis than a copper. And that turns out to be what happens. I feel like this was a minor misplay. And in the meantime, they made like 100 more plays that I presume were all misplays because they're not thinking about them. Yeah, that's what I should do. Is I should just record it in silence, and then I'll slow it down and comment over that. And then I can speed it back up, and it'll sound like I'm talking really fast. And that works out because I'm naturally a pretty slow talker. Okay, so province has been gained. Was that too early? I don't know. Lackeys are at 1. That makes sense. Lackeys is a really good card, and it's a really cheap card. You tend to click them a lot. It makes sense that they each have a druid for plus buy. Bandit camp also seems good. It's a village, and it's also your payload here. I dig it. I just noticed that Vassal was cheap. That doesn't seem very relevant here, because at $2 you're probably buying Lackeys or Druid. Well, now we got a Vassal, now that Lackeys are empty. Is that better than another Druid? Probably. 3 buys is probably enough buys, given the amount of building that they've done. If you really want extra buys, you could add a flagship and then flagship your Druid to double play it. The upside of having a second Druid is like you never have a disaster scenario where you bottom deck your Druid, but if you think you're likely to draw your deck, then that level of caution might not be required. How does Dingan still have 2 of the starting shelters? That is not a good sign. Like, in theory, those things could be gone by turn 5. You find Maroon turn 3, you kill one of them, you draw like most of your deck. You could find Maroon on top again turn 4, kill them, find it again turn 5. Like, that's not super likely, but like I would expect probably at least 2 of them to be gone by like turn 5 or 6. It is quite sad to see these things still in existence. Lack of modify. Yeah, modify seems like a... Well, I was going to say it's an important late game card. It's probably still an pretty important late game card. You don't have any golds or anything that would be good targets for turning into province, but it lets you easily threaten to trash province into province, which is also significant. Flagship makes sense. Could have also considered a second Maroon there. I think I like the flagship better, probably. Syamii seems very attached to this necropolis. Oh my goodness, this is a teeny tiny deck. Where are all your cards, Syamii? So what do you do here? This looks like a sticky situation, doesn't it? Like, I'm just thinking, if you take one province here... Oh, never mind. Your opponent can't easily triple, because they don't have a modify. Like, I was assuming, oh, Dingan hits double easily and then trash a province into province, but they can't do that. So can they do triple province? I don't know. So it's like, assuming they're able to draw their deck again... They had 20 money last turn. Imagine you use that extra flagship to play a bandit camp. That's 2 money from the flagship, 3 more from the spoils. So their deck seems to at least have the possibility of hitting like 25 money. But they also added a flagship and some provinces. So how likely are they to draw that? I'm not sure at all, to be honest. I know very little about the current state of their decks. This is an interesting point for Dingan to be thinking. I guess as Dingan, you're probably trying to figure out what are you aiming for this turn? Like, do you think 3 provinces is realistic? And that could influence which card you're trying to flagship. Like, if you just think, all I really want to do is make sure I draw my deck, and... Like, let's say you had 24 money already. Well, probably you'd flagship the lackeys for maximum draw, or flagship the Maroon if you can find it before playing your lackeys. Because if you're going to hit 24 anyway, you don't need like the extra 2 money from flagshipping Bandit Camp. But if you count up your money and realize, oh, I really need to triple and I've only got 20 money naturally, which I think is about right based on last turn, well then probably you're trying to make sure that you end up using your flagship on Bandit Camp. Okay, so Dingan has concluded that the lackeys must be flagged. I'll trust that they had a good reason for that. We'll find out in a moment. Do they have a second flagship and then we just haven't seen it yet? Or are all the other ones in Syamii's deck? I assume they had another one. Looks like they have two. Did they kill one? Or is it just hiding? Maybe they killed the first one. No, that was Syamii. Yeah, it was just in the bottom. Okay, well, let's see if Dingan counted this correctly. We played 5 bandit camps, so presumably that's 15 money down there. I see 21 money, 23 money. This looks like a win. 24 with the druid, 25 if you flagship the druid. But you do need to draw all of this. So, yeah. Well, let's make sure of this. Maybe this is trickier than I thought. Because you need to draw 5 cards. No, this is fine. You just kill a province. I think if you needed to keep the provinces, this might be a difficult situation. But knowing that you can maroon a province and still win makes it look pretty trivial. So you got to draw 5 cards. Flagship on lackeys draws you 4, so you have to play the maroon and kill something. If you kill a copper, then I think you don't hit 24, because that's 15, 17, 19, 20, 24 exactly. So trashing 1 copper would mean 23. So I think the easiest line here is flagship lackeys, maroon province, play druid for forest's gift, and then you win. And you'd be at 24 points, which would be enough. Supposing you couldn't trash the province, is there another way to do this? Flagshipping the druid doesn't get you enough money. If you maroon the druid, you wouldn't have plus buy. If you maroon the flagship, you draw trivially, but then you're behind by 2 money. Yes, I think the only winning line here involves trashing the province. Yuri's not listening. I'll let him know. I'm pretty sure I'm right about this. Otherwise, now that is permanently... Oh, is it actions short? Ah. Oh, this is relevant. I didn't even think about actions. Yeah, so we can only play 3. Oh. So maybe this isn't a win. Yeah, I like that line. I guess counterfactually. I wonder if that was predictable from the get-go. Maybe so. You knew how many actions you had in your deck, but easy to miss. Okay, so very close to a win. 1 action shy. Game's not over yet. Syamii's deck does a lot less than Dingan's, so not guaranteed to be a win here. What happens if we maroon the flagship? Do we get to 16? I feel like presumably this looks like a win. This is definitely a win. Did I jinx myself? This has got to be a win somehow. Yeah. The druid makes the last coin. Okay, so yeah, I think it looks like the key decision then for Dingan was that start of the final turn choice of what to flagship, and I guess the answer was Bandit Camp after all. Okay, 3-0 for Syamii very early on. What's going on in this kingdom? You got trashing with steward or mint, or any action with way of the goat. You got, where's the plus buy? There's no plus buy, but there are gains. You can gain extra stuff with Hillfort. You could improve it with improve to get other cards that cost more than 4. that offers something, especially because there's also like you could get strongholds for additional victory points. That's kind of relevant. Yes, I think it's possible to build here. If you remove the forts pile, then maybe you play money. I think, and the tricky part is you have to get a tent and rotate to hill fort, which maybe helps your opponent. So there could be a case for playing something more money-ish anyway, unless your opponent reveals the hill fort for you. But I think it's probably worth fitting in a tent at some point, just to give yourself control over the pile and like first dibs at the hill forts. Which looks like the key card here to me. Everything else I think is in plentiful supply. You got draw with Advisor, Swamp Shack, Steward, Garrison, and Stronghold are both draw. Ghost Town and Swamp Shacks are both plus actions. So the tricky part here is gains. I think that comes from improving / hill forting. So what's the open? Dingan has the 2/5, which is a lot worse than the 5/2. But possibly still better than... oh, is that... Yeah, Dingan. Yeah, I think the 4/3 and the 5/2 are both much better than the reverse here, because you can demand something, probably a steward, and play it immediately turn 2. But neither player had that opportunity. So what do you do? They both like demand Advisor. How do I feel about that? I don't love it. It can work out if you find your steward. The problem with Demand Advisor is, like, you draw a bunch off of the horse plus the advisor. But if your steward is in any of the 3 that your advisor reveals, your opponent's obviously just going to discard it, and then you don't get to play the card that you really wanted to play, which is your steward. So I don't think I love the advisor choice. I think I would rather, like, demand Ghost Town, maybe. Does that work? Or maybe, I think, no, that wouldn't work. Demand Ghost Town will put it on top of your deck where you don't want it. So maybe you just, I don't know, demand 2 stewards? I think the answer is their splits are kind of awkward. So maybe you can't hate too much on the advisor choice, but I have my doubts. It'd be a lovely mint, except I think they would have basically no payload in their deck. For Dingan, I think a mint in that scenario would make a bit more sense, because they've already got an improve, which means they've got a bit more money, and they also have something they can immediately do with their mint. They could kill the mint and gain a gold. Like here, for example, I'm thinking mint seems best to me. Do you play the improve? I guess normally or abnormally is the question. I think I'd rather use the improve with Way of the Goat to trash one of these 2 estates. But you could consider playing it so that you could turn the advisor into a baker. Is baker better than advisor? I'm not even sure if that's much of an improvement. So I think I like trashing the estate for sure. That's my final answer. Trash an estate, buy a mint. Seems good. Well, maybe not a mint. The downside of mint here is you don't have a ghost town down, and so this turn, or the following turn, you're not playing both the mint and the. This is a weird line to me. Maybe Dingan is just playing money. I guess that makes some sense. So they added a gold and a mint, so probably their plan then is to keep the mint around and use it to gain additional golds, which is the sort of thing that to me suggests they're shooting to start buying provinces very soon. I didn't think that was the move, just because, like, if you do get the hill forts, your deck can eventually do a lot of stuff. It's a little bit finicky, but it's there. But, you know, again, like, aside from this one pile, there is not that much to do, just because gains are otherwise very limited. I think the mint, or not the mint, I think the gold still seems like a mistake to me. Because, like, if you're syamii, I think you think about adding hint very soon. Because if your opponent starts committing to the more money-ish line, like minting a bunch of golds, now they're low on deck control and high on unnecessary treasures. And then even if you reveal the hill forts, that's proportionally benefiting you a lot more than your opponent at that point. And then like vineyards are not easy to get here because you have to spend your one buy of the entire turn buying the vineyards. You can only get one per turn, but they are alt VP, and like, you just pump your deck full of actions with hill forts, and those vineyards are going to be worth more than provinces, plus duchies and stuff that you could get, or even more preferably strongholds off of improve. I think my money would be on building more here. This is, I guess, a close enough kingdom to make that a bit non-obvious. I presume you kill both estates here. Like, the kingdom is single gain-ish in nature, which is one of those cases where you might consider keeping an estate around as like a tie-breaking point. But in this case, like, you've still got to improve in your deck to gain duchies, and your opponent isn't even necessarily committed to doing the single province thing. So I think I'd rather just trash the estates. But Dingan hanging on to one. All right, we are indecisive. More advisor. I am a little bit confused by these gains. Swamp Shacks is not a money-y card, but gold is. And Dingan has a bunch of golds. So I don't know what their deck is going for at the moment. I mean, maybe you just want 4s that you can turn into bakers with your improve. Baker is a pretty decent money card because it smooths out the amount of money you have. So instead of hitting like 7-9, 7-9 and buying province on half the turns, you just hit 8-8-8 consistently. Ooh. Oh, they're going to gain the mint, I presume. No. We want our coppers. We treasure our treasures. Oh, chat has been doing the thing where it doesn't scroll. I wonder if there's been any insight. Probably not, but I'll check. Dingan Open Steward and has never played it. I didn't even notice that, but I'm going to guess it was Advisor's fault. In which case I'm going to say, told you so. I would think mint into gold at this point. That's my answer. Like, mint is not a good card in your deck in the near term because it is itself a terminal stop card that gives you no money on play. It puts a gold into your deck that helps for future turns, but if you're not planning on having many future turns, the immediate downside of having a bad card in your deck is much more significant. And if you're turning to a gold anyway, like, you'd have to conclude that that mint is going to get you like net 2 more golds, and that long-term benefit of 1 extra gold 2-3 turns from now outweighs trashing 1 bad card and adding a gold more immediately, which just doesn't seem very true to me. So yeah, I think mint into gold pretty clear. That also means now your improve is freed up to gain you additional victory points by turning these advisors and swamp shacks into duchies. Dingan apparently likes Babettel's idea of swamp shacks into Baker. I want the mint to die. I don't like how many coppers Syamii has. Hopefully... The trouble I think you've got here is you do need at least a skosh of debt control here, because your turn late in the game wants to accomplish two things. You want to hit 8, but you also want to line up an advisor or any 4 cost with your improve so that you can get a duchy off of it. And that is asking a decent amount. Hit 8 and play 2 different cards. You know, in a deck with very little control, that's going to be hard to do. Your advisors are going to start picking up coppers, and your opponent's just going to like deny you the improve. And so, being kind of thin seems important to me. Now, the problem, of course, is Syamii's deck has very little payload, so maybe you kill all the coppers and you can't hit province, but I mean, it's kind of hard to see how you win if you have so little money that you need to draw your coppers every turn to hit 8. I thought Syamii's better bet was probably just trying to outbuild Dingan's thing. I'm not sure if that's true, but I would have rather not mirror them in this line. Take a tent in 2 turns, you got hill fort. Pretty soon you got 4 hill forts, and you go from there. Like, this hand does not inspire confidence. Please kill mine. I mean, surely you're buying duchy here, I would think. It's not over. Well, that was a sad turn. maybe it's a little bit over. I was gonna say, like, Dingan didn't get to do anything particularly useful with the improve as far as scoring goes. Probably just a duchy here, I would think. Seems like it should be a duchy. Fun fact, you don't actually have to manually play the coppers one at a time, or the coffers one at a time, as Dingan is doing. The lovely invention of auto buy allows you to click on the duchy, and then it'll buy it for you. It'll put the requisite coppers or coffers into play. Saves many a click. No duchy there being Syamii's last turn, I presume. Oh, they hit 5 and just straight up went for swamp shacks instead. That, yeah, that's a very curious decision, I must say. If we cared about debt control, I think we should have fixed that problem a long time ago. This just looks totally lost. Right? If they both duchy here, how does Syamii even get enough points to come? Like, if Syamii could do province plus duchy this turn and still be losing. And by province plus duchy, I mean 1 coin. Alrighty. Is that 2-1, 3-1? I don't know. I have no idea what the score is, but I'm led to believe that Syamii is ahead. 3-1. Okay. Okay, so Dingan on the do or die. Got to win 4 in a row to win, but it's gotten started. What do we have here? This kingdom looks sad. So you got plus action with barracks, which is $6 for 1 village. There's also tactician. I think you just pray to God that you find a staff in the invasion buys. If you find staff, then you can use that to play tactician every turn, which is a village effect and also like 5 draw and is amazing. And if you can't do that, well, this kingdom just sucks and is sad. Like, you got a little bit of draw from lab. There's also a draw from Old Witch, but like you're gonna get Old Witch for the cursing, but it's not gonna be like good draw per se later in the game because it's terminal and without a village you're gonna be drawing stuff dead. Haven is like kind of sort of thinning in that like every 2 havens you get, I would say, is like thinning 1 estate from your deck because you can just like keep it set aside, but that's not much. So yeah, like I feel like the answer here is get Old Witch early, try to play it more. You could win the game by just burying your opponent in curses if you happen to win that split really handily. If that's not what happens, then you just start clicking invasion and praying you pull a staff, and if you do that, then you probably win. Do they both have 5-2? Or did... Oh, we used the favor, Trapper's Lodge, to hit 5. Dingan got pretty lucky, right? So, like from Syamii's perspective, with 3 coppers and 2 estates in hand, you buy silver, you top deck it. You know for sure you're hitting 5 next turn because your hand is either going to have silver and 4 coppers, or much more likely silver, 3 coppers, and an estate, but hits 5 either way. With Dingan, you buy the silver, you top deck it for your hand that was otherwise going to be 3 coppers, 2 estates. And with 60% likelihood, it's a copper that gets bottom decked, and your hand is silver, 2 coppers, 2 estates, and that's just tragic because 4 does nothing for you here. Dingan took a very risky gamble here and got the 40% case of bottom decking an estate and hitting 5, which is obviously very good. Dingan's opening reminds me of like the turn 1 Ghost Town opening, where on the 3/4 in that case, like you buy Ghost Town on 3 on turn 1, and then you've got a chance of hitting 5. But in that case, at least a 60% chance that you draw a copper. Is this a 3rd Old Witch for Dingan? It appears to be. It's a lot of Old Witches. I think 2 seems like a reasonable number. 3 is pushing it. You don't have a way to trash that for benefit later. I mean, barracks is enough to make me feel fine with 2 Old Witches. 3... It's just a lot. Like 3 Old Witches is basically a full Coven, and Coven's kind of a bad card, is the way I would think about it. We have a tactician already. Exciting. I like that. He's manifesting the staff draw. Ooh, big number, big number. What are you doing with this favor? Took coin and favor. Does the coin... Yeah, the coin could potentially help here. If you get it with plus buy, it means you could buy 2 havens or a haven and another bauble. I think I'd rather 2 havens. Oh, this is clever. I like this play. That's funny. So by default, invasion gains you a loot, and then it says play it. But like, those are 2 different steps. So it gains loot first, then when you've resolved gaining the loot, then you play it. Syamii top deck the loot with Trapper's Lodge, which normally would be like a terrible play because once the loot moves from your discard pile, it interferes with invasion playing it, so you just like cost yourself 3 money and a buy for no reason. But what they did was they guaranteed they would have a shield on top to block the last curses. And yeah, that seems better than playing it for extra money and getting yourself like a haven or something. I'm rooting for the player with Tacticians at the moment. I was about to take that back because I saw him buy a gold, but that was Dingan. Yeah, we're definitely rooting for the player with Tacticians at the moment. Sextant starts with an S, so it's kind of like a staff. I think you pitch everything but Tactician and Curse here, probably. Curse because it will trash itself if your opponent plays an Old Witch, and keeping Tactician on top to play for the following turn. 1/3 of the loot start with S. Wow, that is a lot. Is that true? Sextant, Staff, Spell Scroll, Shield, and Sword. Wow, that is a lot. Poor Dingan has a mere 7 money. Insufficient to purchase invasion. Lab? This is rough because the invasion's also gaining Syamii duchies, which is going to make Duke look really good in a second. Like, duchy will be empty, and then piles will be almost out, and then all of a sudden, Syamii's got these dukes that are worth hella. This is looking like a great spot, I would say, for Syamii. I wonder what these two's record is against each other. Let's take a look. They both, I believe, ladder a lot, so they've probably played each other. Whoo! Dingan leads in their lifetime matchup, 17-16. So clearly the favorite going into this match. Actually, I guess it's already not true. Once you factor in these games from this match, Syamii is now the lifetime leader, and that flipped as of game 2. I think my record versus Dingan is pretty bad. Yeah, I underperform by a good bit. I'm 54-64 with 1 tie against Dingan. But I'm 31-30 versus Syamii. So clearly, transitively, Dingan was also preferred. This looks dire. 8 is not the number you want here. 7 is also not the number you want here. 10 is the number you want here. And Syamii seems to be hitting 10 a lot. I'm surprised labs are still at 10, to be honest. Like, I would have thought after the first 2 Old Witches, you were getting labs for a bit. And then the Tacticians come at a later date, depending on what loots you pull. But Syamii's deck is doing a lot, having 0 labs up until this very moment. Orb is a great loot. Not as good as Staff, but potentially could do the same thing. If you get a Tactician in your discard, you can play with Orb, which is a big deal. I totally forgot the Tactician lets you play an attack card. That does seem at least slightly relevant in this kingdom. No, it doesn't. You could play your Legionary, I guess. So it's like the smallest of benefits. But like, by the time you buy Invasion, if you can play your Old Witch letting you draw cards, but then all the cards you drew are totally useless because you can't play them even if they're treasures once you bought something. It could also play Trickster or Swamp Hag, but Swamp Hag is terrible because it's just way slower than Old Witch, and all the crystals will be out by the time you might want a Swamp Hag. And Trickster, in theory, Trickster actually has a good synergy with shields, because it lets you top deck a shield every turn. But again, just way too slow, because you're not opening with a Trickster, and then the person who plays an Old Witch is going to empty curses before you hit 10 to get a shield. 3 Dukes is a lot of Dukes. Pile's almost out. Dingan in trouble. What do you buy here? You buy Duke, you lower the pile. That doesn't sound good. You buy something else. You don't score any points. That doesn't sound good. Alright, we do go for the Dukes. Oh! Yeah, Dingan could have bought a province there. They hadn't resolved their bobble when they had 7 money. I mean, I don't think it was likely to make a difference, but it did seem like the clear best play. All right, well, that is the match. They finished in about an hour. Congratulations to Syamii for advancing to the semifinals. I don't remember who they play. Well, I don't know who they play in the first place. At no point did I ever know who they play. But 2 of the other semifinals already decided, VR Smith and Mick Seanock. So probably one of them, or maybe the winner of Silly Potter and Agu. They're playing somebody at some point in the future. That's the match.